Hello and welcome to a brand new show that will be airing on the Nerds of Us channel, but also on the FoxyBros Gaming YouTube channel. This is a show that we are titled Just4Games. And in this show, we're going to be discussing games that we like, games we don't like, some games that are hidden gems that we like and no one else has probably known about, and maybe one game that maybe deserves a bit of a reboot or a remake. Well, I'm joined today by FoxyBros Gaming, aka Carl.
What's up?
I'm also joined by fellow Nerds of Us member, Jonathan. How are you?
Hello, dear. How are you?
I'm good. Feel weird doing a fucking intro. It's been a while.
It suits you, man. You should do it more often. I think you bring the great nervous energy that this show needs.
I know. A fucking nerd energy. That's what that is.
That's exactly it. That's what we need for the show. So
it fits both channels. The awkwardness.
Absolutely.
Anyway, but obviously, as the name suggests, we are talking about video games because we really, really like video games. We like playing them. We like discussing about them. We like giving out about them as well. What we liked, what we don't like, what they should have done with it, or where we think they could go. And especially with the evolution of video games over the years, especially in our lifetime, because it's a drastic leap from what I went to in like the early 90s to now.
Yeah.
But I suppose who wants to start off first?
Work away, Jonathan. Let's hear yours.
So I'm right in saying you want to go for best games first, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, we go for best games.
Our favorite games.
All right. So I've made a series about this myself. So I do if you watch that, you know what my number one is. But I'm gonna go a little bit for more so for the case of a talking point, gonna go for something slightly different. So I'm just looking for point-and-click adventures. That's my kind of genre of choice. Now, my guilty pleasure as well in that sense are racing games, but not going to be talking racing games this one because that is a conversation that only I would be having. Because it is a genre. It's not like one of those things where hey guys, remember y'all like farming simulators, and then crickets everywhere. It's oh yeah, you like driving around in circles. Where have you all gone? Why was everyone left?
Making a left turn.
Making another left turn.
Hey, there's a few right turns in there. Get off my back. But honestly, the best game I'm gonna bring up here is, again, I'm a big fan of the Metal Gear Solid series, so my honorable mention would have been that or Snake Eater. But the one I'm gonna talk about is Broken Swords, which is perhaps pound for pound the best point-and-click adventure you're going to play. Quite honestly. Are you familiar with the game? Do you want me to continue on with in terms of detail, or
I'm familiar with it, but for those just in case someone hasn't that's watching, please give them.
Sure. So, Broken Sword is a point-and-click adventure game. It's set in Paris mostly, and then it travels around to different locations. Your main character is an American tourist called George Stobart, to be precise, and he's basically a student of law, but he's touring Europe basically as his holiday. So the game is done by a crowd called Revolution Software, and their bread and butter are these type of games. They're all very well written. The characters are very, very strong and very prominent, and they put a lot of effort into developing the setting and the themes. They have always great scores as well. Always helps. So the actual plot of the game itself, the intro is essentially where you see George having a lovely coffee outside in a cafe in Paris, enjoying the sights. He's kind of eyeing up the waitress, going, nice bit of crumpet, whatever it is. And basically the whole scene is ruined because a clown walks in behind a big squeeze box, runs into the cafe, leaves the squeeze box there, runs out, and the cafe is blown up. And George narrowly avoids it. Basically, he's kind of he survives the blast, and that's the actual starting point of the game, right? So from that point, then George obviously takes it upon himself that during his vacation, because apparently he is on holiday here, right? This is his trip around Europe. He goes, you know what? I want to find out who the fuck tried to kill me. So at that point, then he meets up with a journalist who's investigating these things called Nico Collard, and they have this wonderful Mulder and Scully-esque relationship where like it is like the gaming will they won't they in that sense, and that goes on for the entire series of these Broken Sword games. There's 5 of them in total, and there is like literally not one case where we just go fucking just marry each other for fuck's sake. They never do, because like circumstances always go against them. But in this game, like from that point of where a clown blew up a cafe in Paris, it jumps into then the legends of the Knights Templar and how they were taken down and how they were essentially disassembled across Europe and the wider world and the stuff that they had. So I should explain that the actual full title of the game is Broken Sword, Shadow of the Templars, right? But in France, it's called, I think it's either the Curse or the Sword of Baphomet, which is another legend attached to the Templars. So a lot of point-and-click adventures do this, where they have really well-researched aspects of the game. So, like, for example, on the game gallery at the moment in the Nerdsverse channel, we're playing through Gabriel Knights, which is a voodoo-themed game. And the game actively educates you on voodoo culture as you're playing, which is really interesting to me because you're learning as you're playing. But then you also have to apply that later on in the game. Likewise with Broken Sword. I think Broken Sword will actually really optimize this. It learned from what like Gabriel Knight was doing and said, oh, we can do this, but better. And all the puzzles are absolutely sublime. But what really makes this game so well done is the writing. It's one of the most like concisely written, concisely is probably the wrong word, but it's the most packed writing game you find because all the characters are fun. You have multiple locations in the game, basically, and everywhere you go, there is a memorable character in it. And they're all throwaway characters. You normally don't see these guys again because they're in like one-off locations, but you remember the location because of that one character. So I'll try a few examples here. You go to a hotel in Paris and there's a woman playing the piano. Her name is Lady Piermont. This proper, like, you know, blue-blooded British, like, expat, essentially. The type that would vote for Brexit, essentially. And she uses her British arrogance to get you to proceed in the game because she knows she can carry it. Because she is going, oh, hello there, look at you, American student, is it? No, tourist, close enough, you're about the same. And essentially, like, just hand waves the whole thing and distracts a concierge for you, you know, and she, like, basically just, like, kind of acts like a battle axe on your behalf. Fucking hilarious character. In Ireland, because you, like, one of the areas is Ireland, you go to the west of Ireland in this game as well, and there's a literal pub of stereotypes in the game. You walk in and you have these two lads like chatting shy at the bar. One's really smart and really like doesn't belong in a setting like this. You know, he's far too smart to be in this part of Ireland in a sense, and like he just knows everything. And then you have his mate who is thick as pig shit. Literally does not know anything. Doesn't even realize you're talking to him half the time. You know. Then you have the barman who is just absolutely sick of everyone at this point, even spiteful at the point that he has to serve you. You know, so he's like withering contempt. You have a nervous guy at a table who's like twitchy and doesn't belong either. And you have the really creepy old guy in the corner who's like preparing rabbit snares and shit like this. So really like packed full of characters, not just in Ireland, right? You go to Syria in this game as well. And one of the most iconic characters in it is a guy called Ultar, who's a taxi driver, right? And he speaks in this kind of like pidgin English where like he's not pidgin English, he speaks in really kind of flowery English where everything is beautiful and magical and you are wonderful and my taxi is executive taxi that will bring you from this to this in maximum comfort. It's a Land Rover. He's driving a fucking Jeep, right? And the gas thing is like you have to go through a few kind of like basically puzzles to get to the point where you can go in this taxi. And the hilarious thing is that you try and go, okay, we're going to go to this this place where the Templars are hiding stuff in Syria. Are you ready to go? Yes, we're ready to go. Absolutely, 100%. Well, apart from that, actually, no, the fan belt's broken. What do you mean broken? Well, it doesn't have one. So your executive taxi doesn't have a fan belt. Didn't seem to need one beforehand. Like, what the fuck? Very funny characters, and it's that kind of thing where like you think you have it solved and you have to do something else then, and that's where the thing kicks into it. But characters one thing, and then there's some absolutely fantastic puzzles then as well that uses what you're learning about the Templars and applies it. So like again, there's a location in Spain you go to where again the Templars are involved. You have like these Neo Templars you have to chase down, and that's what the kind of central premise of the game is, that you're trying to like catch after these Neo Templars and see who is actually behind the attack in the cafe, who was the target, who was the assassin, all this sort of stuff. And funny enough, there is an assassin in this game. So like we have the series Assassin's Creed. There is an assassin that is like basically like chasing you as well. He's called Khan. And he basically, the way he works is he works in disguises. So he was disguised as the clown in the cafe. And then basically whenever you hear of other murders he's done, he's like dressed as a snowman or he's dressed as a penguin, whatever it is. He's just a disguised killer until you finally meet him in his native Syria and you basically one up him with a really clever puzzle. And it basically, the game kind of rattles on from location to location to location until you get to the final confrontation. But like I can't. It's one of those games where like it's very good as a playthrough watch, definitely, because it plays very well as a movie. And when you kind of watch it back, you'll notice if you've ever watched the Da Vinci Code, as in the movie, or read the novel, if you can read that novel, it's terrible. But if you've ever watched the movie, the similarities between Broken Sword and this are very, very fascinating. Where if you took the Templar shit out and just added Jesus Christ, it's more or less the same plot. And Broken Sword predates the book that Dan Brown plagiarized to make the Da Vinci Code by a couple of years. so that's a kind of a sign of its quality, that like basically two people nicked the same idea of Broken Sword. But like honestly, it is a fantastic game series. It's definitely, if you wanted to say like kind of like the four cornerstones of point-and-click adventures, like Broken Sword is that. It is the, well, I kind of describe it as the crystallization of everything point and click. It has everything you need. And because you have good characters, great witty dialogue, great repartee with the main characters, and genuinely good plots, like genuinely interesting storylines, interesting history that a lot of it is based on is genuine, and then adds its own little bit of fiction on top of it where you don't quite know what is true and what's not true. It's like it's taking kind of like creative freedom with what it has, if that makes sense. And again, like genuinely good locations as well. Like the hub city is Paris, and in the original version, Paris is a hub city. You can go to all these different locations and kind of travel around as if you were a tourist. Now they've since then they've put out a director's cut which simplifies the game a bit more, gives the Nico character some love at the start and gives her a prologue basically, which is very good in their own right. But I prefer the original version because you have the hub city to go around and it feels like more of an actual adventure that way. But definitely like I keep going back to Broken Sword for my best game because it's very rare. Like in a sense, I think it's the best in its genre. I think it's the best in the show, and I don't think there's been any game that's come close to it in that sense. You know, like you have other games in the genre, like your Monkey Islands, your Grim Fandangos, your Gabriel Knights, who I think are really, really good. But I think if you were to say what's like best in show overall, what's consistently the best, it's Broken Sword all the way. Because I can't really find fault with it. There's no plot holes. All the characters are funny and enjoyable, and the puzzles are interesting, solvable but interesting. So that's why I think it's my personally best game, because I think like every time I go to it, I kind of like enjoy it even more, because it's still, no matter how many times I play through, I just still enjoy it for what it is. So that to me, I think is my best game anyway.
To say that the game came out in '96. I'm quite shocked at how, like, I'm looking at pictures of it and the graphics are actually quite well done.
They're all hand drawn.
96. Yeah, they're very, very well done.
Yeah. So the engine they use is called Virtual Theater, and it's basically the engine that this company has used since the 90s, essentially. So it's
Ubisoft.
They're
one of the publishers.
Ubisoft was publisher for the 3D games, but Revolution Software themselves are independent. They're independent.
Yeah, you can see that there.
And they're very small studios. There's like only 30 people that work for them, and like they will put out games when they're ready.
Yeah, they say that there's been 5 of them.
Yeah, 5 of them.
5 of them in 18 years is actually quite good.
Yeah, and like I said, it's because they take their time with them. They don't rush them at all.
They're not Call of Duty.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing. Like the designer of the game, Charles Cecil, is a world traveler himself. So he travels around the world and essentially like kind of like takes inspiration from where he goes. So he has gone to like Ireland and Syria and Spain to see what the culture is like and to apply it in his games. So there is like definitely a real world feel, and especially if you ever played a game and you are in like Lochmarn in the Ireland area, those characters hit hard. Like they are real people. Like you've met a Doyle or an O'Shea or whatever it is that are in these games, because like someone like this. So it's that's the way I quite like about it, is that it does feel very real. but also in this case where like it's still exaggerated enough to make it into a fun game, a fun experience. But yeah, it still holds up to this day. It's been important. It's imported to phones. It's been imported to iPads. It's one of the few kind of point-and-click games you can
Game
get for
Boy
iPad.
Advance.
Game Boy Advance, yeah, it's been ported to pretty much everything. Yeah,
Windows, Mac, PlayStation, Game Boy Advance, Wii,
yeah,
Nintendo
yeah.
DS.
That was probably the
Yeah,
director's cut.
hell.
Yeah.
That's a lot of. It's been released on a lot of platforms.
Oh yeah, no, it's there's good reason for it because it's quality. Like it's genuinely fucking good. Again, if you wanted to see like the best of a point and click adventure, that's the game I'd point to. That and perhaps Monkey Island, but those two are the ones I'd look at. Because like I don't think there's anything that really tops it, in my opinion. It's the best in show in that genre. So
I'm looking at the artwork and I'm just like, that's very like clean, like especially for the time that was.
and it has its own score as well. It has an
Yeah.
orchestra on like they hired an orchestra to make the score of the game and the shows. It has the production behind it and it has the thought. Like again, for 1996, this blew a lot of other games out of the water, in my view. Because this would have been around the time where you had treat like shooters and platformers, all this sort of stuff. So it's kind of coming towards the end of the kind of golden age of the point and click games. But this was the fucking like the last hurrah. This was the money shot, if you like, of that genre.
It was essentially the culmination of all like the point and click adventures. Like all the good aspects rolled into one neat package.
Yeah, it definitely learned from what other games were doing, applied it, and did it better. You know, it had the power of hindsight, but it also didn't parody itself in a sense, where it did things in a nicer tone, a better tone, in a tone that suits it, and didn't kind of fall into kind of pitfalls that some games do, where you have like cheap deaths and so forth. The deaths are justified. Like you did fuck up, and there's a way around it, basically. It's just using your brain and not falling for it, in a way. Because like some game makers don't believe in deaths for those type of games. They give you a way out. Whereas this is kind of like a happy medium where like you will die if you fuck up, but you know how to survive it. Basically, you'll die once, but you shouldn't die twice. Essentially,
yeah, they give you all the tools that's needed.
Exactly. Yeah.
What about yourself, Carl? Like, what be
what best game?
Yes.
Best game, like it's quite hard for me because I have like two in particular that would be up there. Like two like game, like it'd be Elder Scrolls and Metal Gear Solid. But out of two, I would probably more hinder towards Elder Scrolls by far.
Are you talking about Oblivion or Morrowind, Skyrim?
Not Morrowind. I love Morrowind. Absolutely adore the game, but it'd be a toss up between Oblivion and Skyrim. But I think Oblivion might just take it in the
I give it to Oblivion itself.
Like to say that Oblivion had a bit more, like Skyrim has so much to do with it, and it's really enjoyable to play. But Oblivion just had that little bit extra to give you that like enjoyment to playing the game. Of like, just the main story was really good. Skyrim's is really good, but Oblivion's is just really, it gets you kind of like, I have to go here, I have to go there, I have to go everywhere, and then you're really in depth into it. Like the fact that you have to go from being locked in a prison to be like, what are you doing in this cell? And even you're like, I don't fucking know. Let's just start the game.
Yeah.
Then like as you progress onwards, you become better. Like it becomes better and better through the game. Like, and the fact that like in Oblivion, you had obviously, me and I were talking about the other day, was like the fact of the arena and stuff like that. It has its own like quest essentially to become a grand champion. And then you have like all the other, you have all the guilds like the Fighters Guild, Thieves Guild, like Mages. I don't really care for the Mages Guild, but Mages Guild. You have all that kind of stuff. Like in the grand aspect of looking at a game, the graphics were amazing for a 360 game, which was scary good, and it was also PC. But like the fact that you could walk around this entire massive map, and it was huge for the time, but there was none of this when you change sections, and it does that stupid loading screen, or it does this like weird like glitch where you kind of like lag for a bit. It just was clean. It was straight in, real clean. The only time you get a loading screen is when you go through an Oblivion gate. Like essentially, that's literally it. And that's going from one complete different style of land to a desolate dimension, which would make sense.
Like for that, like now, Oblivion is one of those games that for years I hated. I didn't want to be want anything to do with it. But eventually I decided to give it a go because I had nothing better to do. And I was running out of games.
I picked one of the longest games out there.
I know, but it's because I was familiar with seeing other people play it. And I was just like, all right, like I'll give it a go. And they obviously like it for a reason. So why didn't I give it a go? And I'm glad I did because I grew to really, really enjoy it.
Yeah, it's all the characters as well, like the way that they brought characters
Patrick
in.
Stewart
And went on.
being in that was a big selling point. I was like, this is deadly.
To be fair, any game that kills off Patrick Stewart 10 minutes in is a fucking ballsy attempt.
Yeah, literally, it's like, I'm only 10 minutes in.
He charges per line.
Yeah, as I say, we only have him in for a day. Let's just get use of him. As you've got 10 minutes. Fuck. Okay, give him the script.
In that 10 minutes,
go.
He stops you like 50 times going through them bleeding tunnels and all.
Yeah.
Just to talk, and you're like, come on, I want to just go kill and explore.
We're getting our money's worth out of him. It's like, no,
literally,
he's getting some lines in there. Back that.
Like even
the irony of like Sean Bean not even fucking dying in the game either. Like, you know,
was he used for the trailer with the voiceover at the start, wasn't he?
I think so.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. It's been a while since I played
the opening
Patrick Stewart did the intro.
Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
The intro, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like even the fact that like that intro, like when you start off in that game, you're literally coming down over the map, like it looks so good.
It looks really good, yeah.
And like the fact that with the DLC, the likes of the Knights of the Nine, you come to find out one of the main characters is actually a part of that and all. And I really enjoy that. And then
Shivering Isles was very good as well.
I loved Shivering Isles. It was so good. Like it was one of them things you were just like, oh, this is kind of cool. I want to keep going with this. And like it's a game I'd always go back to play. Just even for like, I want to do a fight in the arena. Even if I finish the game and I don't want to restart it, I'm like, I go to the arena. Or I'll go off and do a side mission or whatever. Like it's the same aspect in like Skyrim has some aspects that I would love to have seen in Oblivion. Like the fact that you can own your homestead in Skyrim and build your own house and stuff like that. That in Oblivion, there's a little bit of it where you get the DLC to own your own castle. But it's like all you're doing is buying it and then it's automatically in there.
Where you don't actually build it from the ground.
Yeah, like in Skyrim, you're going out, you're building the hinges, getting the nails, getting the wood to build these things. And it's real kind of like, like that concept in Oblivion would have been so good.
Yeah.
Like with that, like it, and even without that, like for the game that was, like it's not overly complicated.
No.
Like years ago, I would have thought
quite straightforward.
Yeah, it grows on you. Like it does take you a good few minutes to get a grasp on it, but once you have it, that's it. Like it's actually very enjoyable after that.
Like I think the hardest part of that whole game was Knights of the Nine. You had to go to all the like relic zones and pray at the stupid altars because they're not marked on your map or anything. So you have to read these things and go, it's near Kvatch, north of Kvatch, and you're on wandering in the bleeding wilderness for hours to find it.
Yeah.
But like most of the quests are just like, oh, go to Kvatch, go to Bruma, go to like it's straightforward. And when you're in these places, you can do other things. Like even trying to steal, like when you're doing the Thieves Guild, is fucking mad hard. Because like you could be like, oh, nobody's around. As soon as you crouch to touch the door, there's a guard right beside you. Just go. You're just like, fuck.
You have broken the law.
You're like, you weren't there a second ago. Where the hell did you come from?
It's also the meme quality of Oblivion really helps as well as that.
It's so good.
Because it's a Bethesda game, it's also a glitchy fucking mess. And you're just, something's going to happen and you have to clip it and it's going to be fucking hilarious.
There's some funny stuff out there for that game. Yeah. You just can't help but like, yes. The fact
that the speedrunning record of a game, as you said, it is quite long. It's like fucking 12 seconds because the fucking dozy bastards put the starting area and the ending area right beside each other.
Oh,
so someone could just like wall skip and in the fucking final area. Like
it's like, I'm just gonna go over here.
Yeah, just like extra stage left. I'm gonna fucking snaggle push my way into that fucking arena. Like.
I think one of the funny, like one of the best bits about Oblivion was the fact that it got harder as you went on.
Oh yeah,
like the enemies just started getting progressively harder, and you're just like, I have this armor on and this sword that does magic damage or fire damage, but yet I'm still getting taken out by a fucking arrow. It's like, yeah, all right, then this makes perfect sense. Yeah. I've spent so long getting this like mad armor, like elven armor all on me, like your glass armor. And you're like, well, I'm dead again. Now I have to go back all the way to my checkpoint.
Yeah.
Like, not only like do you spend so many hours trying to grind and get your armor to like high quality, but the fact that like you could, if you were so inclined, go into any building and read the books and learn from them.
Yeah, it increases your like
increase your intelligence and your abilities.
See, it's intelligence in Skyrim. It's something else. It's like they changed it a little bit.
I think
it depends on what book you're reading. Sometimes,
yeah, some like do speech, some do
archery and shit like that,
and stuff like that. Like blacksmithing in Skyrim was fucking amazing. I love that. I spent so many hours doing that, and I just recently watched a video on just outside of what's the name of that? Whiterun. You can actually have a farm and become a farmer.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can. Yeah,
I was like, what? I was like, that'd be cool. But like, I don't know if you have seen John the Mud. I've showed Niall before that group of guys who basically took Skyrim's graphics and remade Oblivion in that style, and it's immaculate.
I do. I feel like I've seen that alright.
Yeah, it's called Sky Oblivion.
Oblivion, yeah.
It's we're going back and looking at it then, and I'm like, wow, now this is a game I could play forever.
Yeah.
This would be like one of them top 10 games. What games would you get rid of and what games would you keep? I'd be like, Oblivion.
Yeah, no, fair point, yeah.
Someone goes, what about Call of Duty? Fuck Call of Duty, give me Oblivion. I can finish Call of Duty on the hardest difficulty in 6 hours. Give me Oblivion. It takes like 24 hours for me to even get halfway into a game.
It's definitely a game you can get lost in, I find.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Now, Skyrim is very good for that as well, but like there's enough like kind of clusterfucks to take you out of Skyrim. But with Oblivion, everything is just a little bit is grand to keep you in the game world.
Oh, yeah. Like me, I was only saying, like I was talking to Noel the other day about this, the fact that when you go to each city, it's a different style.
Yeah.
Like each bit, all the builds are different. Like one city is like pure posh and stone and all. Next one you go to one that's like real medieval, like up in Bruma or and then even what's the name of that stupid stronghold the Blades have up in the north? Skyholder Temple or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just pure stone. It looks literally like a big massive fortress on a mountain.
Yeah.
And like just down the hill from it is Bruma. And it's pure medieval, like wooden roofs and stuff like that. Bar the keeps obviously are stone, but like it's proper medieval. But then you go to like to the main city, like the Imperial City, and it's like, what the fuck? This changed dramatically. Like it's just all stone and metal, and like it looks immaculate.
It is. It's just like it, incredibly layered and very detailed, as detailed as you want to go into game, and it does invite you to actually replay it multiple times, which is what you want from a video game.
Yeah, you don't want to be like, oh, I finished this game.
And forget about it completely. Like even with the DLC, once you finish it, it's like
Shiver Nodes is a DLC I play over and over again. It's just so good.
Yeah, it's a good one, yeah.
So obviously for me, like now the game I'm picking at the moment, now this creeped up only recently as like one of my favorites for simply like how immersed I got into it, and the fact that like I just couldn't put it down. Like, and that was a Marvel's Spider-Man.
Then the new version
on the not the Miles Morales, the other one.
The first one that came out on the PS4.
First one that came out, yeah.
Like that creeped into my fucking top games because like the story is so well done. And like Insomniac did a fantastic job in redoing the mechanics, especially for swinging and his fighting. Like it just, I couldn't help it. Like even there was sometimes where Carl would be down here and he'd see me. Like I just couldn't put the fucking thing down.
Yeah,
that like it just sucks you in. Even like the side missions in the game, you didn't feel like it was repetitive at any point because just all the transitions were smooth. The combat was nice and easy to pick up. You could also unlock upgrades or new costumes. There was bits of everything for people. It was essentially Marvel doing their version of Batman, the Arkham series.
Yeah.
And but the real like selling point of the game was the story. Just very, very good writing for a very good and because it's so familiar character, it hits even more with how much they immerse you with the characters that are involved in the story.
Yeah.
So I know mine isn't as detailed, but like that has creeped in as one of my favorite games at current time.
In fairness, though, your game is quite new and modern, so a lot of people would know that, and they feel exactly the same way you would the game. Like where like mine, John's games are a bit older, like fucking Oblivion's what 2006.
Yeah, they were
fucking like even John and like Broken Sword is 96.
96.
So for fuck's sake, like the games are out a long time.
Exactly.
We're old, you can tell.
I don't know if it comes across, lads.
Well, you're not old. You're the youngest in the.
I'm the youngest, yeah, but still.
Relatively speaking, he feels old. That's a difference.
Yeah, I feel I was talking about games that I played when I was a kid. Like
that's it. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. If I was gonna, I was actually gonna talk.
I'll bring the Atari back and all that. You're gonna talk about that shit.
The old Commodore 64.
64, yeah.
The old Dizzy series.
Nah, I'm alright there. I don't want to talk about that garbage.
Like, obviously, we're after talking about like games that we really, really like. Now, here's a bit more the trickier one. A game that you hate. Like, I'm not talking about like, no, I don't like it. No, I'm talking about like frustratingly just like, no, I'm done with this. I'm not touching it. Like, it can fuck right off.
Yeah. I've got two here for this one, right? So I'm a fucker for playing new games, right? And the reason is because I have a very adverse effect on hype. So if a game is getting hyped up and getting like hotly anticipated and all this sort of stuff, I tend to avoid it. So like I have like a regular of games I bought because they're on the cheap and I haven't touched yet. Games that are like people are like fucking ranting and raving about. New games that like I haven't touched basically. But it's the case of like I will get to them eventually at some point, like you know, having the fucking two channels. At some point I will play it for that channel. So it's not a big deal. No. But the reason I have an adverse like detestment of pipe is because of these two games, right? So actually, no. The first one I'm going to throw. They're both Ubisoft games, by the way. So there's a content thread between these two. My honorable mention is Watch Dogs, right? Because that game in particular is such a complete waste of time. It really truly is, because they had marketed and hyped it up as if what happens if you're a hacker in a city of all this sort of stuff. It's like, really? Because all I'm seeing is a guy with a shitty Belfast accent who shoots a lot of guns and is a complete fucking psychopath. He's not a hacker. He just happens to be good with a phone.
Yeah.
Whereas like the game could have very well been and also it's like Death by Sandbox as well. So the case of like Ubisoft cannot stop making sandbox games. They actually can't help themselves. No. It's like the only games they're able to make now. They have no artistic integrity anymore. Which is such a damn shame, because they had a very good track record before they had this fucking weird illness that they literally are like joined to the hip by a sandbox game. Everything has to fit into the same mold. And quite frankly, it's like, again, they're artistically bankrupt, as I said, but this was the very obvious like production mill of like, get the sandbox game out there, do it, keep making more games. So Watch Dogs fell into that hole very, very quickly, where like they developed the first game, then you had San Francisco, then you had Legion, which is apparently a much bigger improvements, because they started like touching on the themes they were meant to be doing for the first game. But the problem was it took them 2 fucking games to get there, where they could have done it with the first one. My issue with the first game was that your character shouldn't be able to just pick up a fucking M4 and start shooting like a complete madman. And also that, and the character's a complete fucking prick. I don't want to play as this guy. I hate him. He's not even from Ireland. He's a fucking fraud. Like, this guy's a complete fucking idiot, right? I don't want to play as him. I don't care about his backstory. I don't care why he's a hacker. He's not even a hacker. He can do some fucking traffic lights. Brilliant. Wonderful. He can hack an ATM. Good for you. I can as well. Fucking brilliant. Doesn't matter. You're not a hacker.
I was like, I can't do.
Just very subtly, just like, yeah, I can't do.
That's
the way it proposes. Like, oh yeah, press of a button, hack an ATM. It's like, that's great. That's super. Why don't you use a puzzle to get around the fact that you're being chased by cops? Why don't you get around with the fact by having a character who is shit at shooting? But you have to use the hacking, to get around. But that's my honorable mention. The one though that properly, like, the game I'm talking about here now actively killed my interest in an entire series. Like, literally stopped it fucking dead. And I haven't touched back to it since. I haven't even looked at the series since. Assassin's Creed 3. I fucking...
hang on. No. There is worse Assassin's Creed games than Assassin's Creed 3.
It is, but I haven't played them. Here's the difference.
Go play them, and you will end up you'd love that game compared to fucking.
So here's the thing with this, right? So I went on a bit of a binge of Assassin's Creed because, again, it was a series I wanted to check out. I thought the initial premise was very, very interesting. I'm one of the few people in the world that probably actually quite likes the Desmond Miles arc.
I do. I love Desmond.
Yeah. Now, the reason I like is because it's literally Assassin's Creed. That's the name of the game, the whole point of the game. And this is where Ubisoft really need to get a fucking slap because they actually don't understand half their premises. So I know the original game director of Assassin's Creed got the sack halfway like through the series, essentially. And now they're just like cookie cutter, like creating like, whimsical, happy little historical adventures in a time period of their choice. And that's the way it's gone. But that's Ubisoft all over, their production mill of mediocrity. So when you do that, right, you have an overarching story where you have this character who's learning to become an assassin through the bleeding effect, through the amicus, and learning about his descendants. That is a really great premise because in that first game where you are playing as Altair, you're learning all this stuff as he's learning it. But also with Desmond, you're so restricted in what you can do in a sense where like you don't really move around, you don't really like jump around the place until the end where you start playing basically fucking around with swords.
Yeah.
And again, it has an Assassin Templar kind of dynamic, which again, coincidentally, was part of my best game thing. So you can see where I kind of got the
even the first game's like story, like the history in it as well, made it really enjoyable to play.
Oh yeah, that was it. And the characters were the characters you play as were interesting. Altair was a bit of a deep character, but he was meant to be. He was an analog. It doesn't matter. But like I said, the setting was very cool, was interesting. The gameplay was interesting as well, if a bit clunky at the time. I never find it. 2 was where it really hit its stride because it learned from the first game in the sense where it helps to have a charismatic character. And in terms of charismatic characters, it said, okay, we need someone charismatic. What do? Let's put it in a more charismatic era. So let's go for the Renaissance. And through Renaissance, you get Ezio Auditore. So
Auditore da Firenze.
Exactly.
Oh, he's so funny.
He's a fucking great character. Absolutely brilliant character. And you love playing as him because he is just a naturally charming, very good, and genuinely like interesting character to play as. And the great thing about that is that makes Desmond more interesting as well. Because the same with Wise. He becomes more of an interesting character too. And over time, now, again, this is where Ubisoft becomes Ubisoft and they go, oh, I believe a lot of people like Ezio. Let's make 2 more games with him. Like, but no, what about your initial premise? Like, we'll come back to that. Like, this is where the thing was, where like they just could not stick to their philosophy. In the same way, if you look at any other game series, like I'll use Metal Gear Solid as a comparison. No Metal Gear Solid game is the same.
No, all different.
The closest thing is Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2, but that's done deliberately. That is to make you remember the first game and to use it as a point of context, a comparison to what's happening with your character. So like when you realize then like the villains you've been playing as or you've been fighting against are analogs of Foxhound, then you realize, oh, that's why this is all meant to be a training exercise for your new character, Raiden, not Snake. So you could have the fact that like they know as a prominent game series like that, they know how to make every game feel different because it is a different experience each time. There's an evolution there. Assassin's Creed didn't do that. They're more than happy to keep making the same game because they know it was selling. They know there's a market out there, and they're just going, make a new game, make a new game, make a new game, and basically bankrupt their own creativity. And I've said that before about Watch Dogs and about all the other series that they do. They're happy to just produce more than anything else, which is a shame because I think there was so much more potential in the Assassin's Creed series to make something out of it. I know they got a movie out of it and they got other games out of it, but like Assassin's Creed could have been so much more creatively, is what I'm saying. So you have the trilogy with Ezio, and they flesh out the story to death essentially between the three games. Revelations, I think it was a lovely send-off for Ezio himself and Altair as well.
I really enjoyed Revelations.
Yeah. And they set up Desmond then to be the crux of the series, because that's been the whole point of it, where like they have passed the torch to Desmond to be the assassin.
It's
right.
It's really interesting though, the fact the way like it recently came out like that the way they wanted to end that game was Desmond getting off Earth in a fucking spaceship, and I was like, thank God you did not go down that fucking route.
In fairness, God. Like that was the one thing I'd say. Where the gripe was that introducing the kind of God's aspect too was like, no. That's the step in the wrong direction. Pull back from that and go back to where you were. Go back to the conflict between the assassins and Templars. Yes, have your idols in a sense, but don't show idols. Don't make them real. It's more interesting if they're false, if they're not there. Yeah. If the whole exercise has been about power and there's actually none there to begin with. Now that's a bit of a trope, I know, but it's like they're not to subvert the trope is to actually have a god. No, that's not how it works. So in any case, you fast forward then to Assassin's Creed 3, which again had all the hallmarks of being an interesting game. Set in the American Revolution, complete different setting, complete different character, complete different premise for Desmond then, because Desmond's now starting off a new arc. He has to try and confront whatever kind of gods he has. You know, it's been so long since I played again, I actually even forgot the fucking premise now at this point. But what I do remember is that Ubisoft completely forgot how to write heroes. And this is a problem they had from Watch Dogs to some of the other games that they're published as well, where they thought they were being edgy or interesting or cool by having a unlikable protagonist.
Yeah.
And that's just not how video games work, right? If you're a protagonist, you want to play as them. You want them to enjoy being them. If you're playing as a prick, I don't want to play as you. In the same way, we're like that's what put me off Last of Us as well, because I love the Joel character is great and interesting, but Ellie's a fucking arsehole. I'm not playing as her. So why would I want to play a sequel where it's her and Abby as well? I'm not interested. Joel was the good character there. That's the one to play as. And you kill him off fucking 5 minutes in. Fuck off. I'm not interested. So in the same way where like this game here is where you've taken all the charm and charisma out of your assassin and left a void. A complete void and misanthropic and all this sort of stuff. An ungrateful, spoiled brat as an assassin. It's like, okay, I get that you have to do a contrast with Ezio, but for the love of God, you don't go from yin to yang immediately. You give them aspects of it. You do something with it. And what's worse of all, by the way, is that you start off that game playing as Thomas Haytham. I can't remember his name is.
Yeah.
But Haytham, that's what it was. And like he is he's eloquent, he's charisma, he is the Ezio character of that game, and he's a fucking Templar. Yeah. He's one of the bad guys. And it's a great twist at the start of the game. And the hilarious thing is that, like, as I'm playing as Connor then throughout the entire thing, I'm going, this guy's a prick. I want to play as Thomas again. Like, fuck the assassins. I want to be a Templar now because this guy is leaving me such a bad taste in my mouth. And then they compound that then by completely nuking the Desmond storyline, because the public perception was that the Desmond story was irrelevant. It was pointless. So Ubisoft, again, knee-jerk reactions. They go, okay, no one likes Desmond. Let's kill him off. I was like, so what about your story? What about your overarching story? They've just scrapped it. And now it's just crazy shenanigans, in different time periods. In the same way, like, they look at the market analysis and they let that decide their next game. And in some aspects, I think that's good, but it also shows that you actually don't have a plan. You are just going by what you think works, and that's it. You actually do not have a desire or an intention to make an interesting game. You just want to make money, and you will just work with what you have. Like, Nintendo gets that shit for like franchises like Zelda.
I gotta step in here. No, after that, when they brought Black Flag out, man, Black Flag was
the reason Black Flag is successful is because
that story is linked to 3.
Yeah,
Edward Kenway is like,
like it is because the one positive from Assassin's Creed 3 was a naval combat. So just made a game that's all fucking naval combat. Like there's no merit in it. There's no reason for it, bar the fact that like they knew that worked and everything else didn't. You know, they could have had their own plan.
Black Flag brought out, like when that came out, it had a story, and it even brought in these historical figures of like Blackbeard, and brought in like Captain Kidd and stuff like that. Like I love the fact that they done that, but it's still tied into number 3. And then it's also like, oh, okay, there's still stories here. And now they're making a Black Flag 2, which is when Edward actually goes back to the Caribbean. Which I'm like, okay, this could get real fun. Like, after Black Flag, that franchise died a death. 3 wasn't the fucking reason for it, was everything after Black Flag.
But that's the I think 3 was the start of it because
like what was the one you played, Niall?
So I actually played like a good few, like so I went like 1 to what was it, Brotherhood, Revelations, 3,
Black Flag, and then
Black Flag. Then it was what was it? Rogue.
Rogue was shite. Rogue was garbage.
Liberation.
Another garbage game. Them 2, and then Unity. Unity was the worst out of them all.
Unity was terrible. Syndicate was okay. God. I did enjoy Syndicate.
But like when you play like Valhalla now, like the Assassin's Creed Valhalla, it's just like another game altogether.
But you're into Vikings.
It's not even the Vikings aspect, it's the actual story. It's back to this kind of Desmond like person. Obviously, you're whatever her name is, I can't remember her name, in a fucking animus, and you're trying to find out what happened to this ancestor who was buried in America. And you're like, why is this Viking buried in America? Like, and the fact that like the world is like shaking and stuff like that has some bullshit to do with Desmond as well. Because you still have Rebecca, and you still have the other guy with the glass. I can't remember his bleeding name.
Yeah.
In it, so it ties back to Desmond, which I like the fact that they do that. And the fact you get out of the Animus and you run around and you're picking up the same thing as Desmond when you're, I can actually jump and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like,
the bleeding.
That fact.
But like, to go back to what you were saying,
4 or 5 games to get back to that, where like
it literally took what? 4 games.
Because I mean, like you also had Origins and then fucking
Odyssey, I think as well.
Odyssey as well. Now I haven't played those 2.
They're apparently brilliant. They're great gameplay, solid, yeah.
Which is it?
Origins and Odyssey.
Really good. Really, really good. I loved Origins. I loved both of them. Like out of the 2 of them, Origins was good, but I preferred the
Roman.
The Greek one, not Roman. Greek,
yeah.
Yeah, I just preferred that gameplay. I don't know what it was. It was a lot smoother to me. And where like Origins was very kind of clunky. I don't know why, but it was clunky.
It was because they were experimenting with new control scheme, like a new engine as well.
Yeah, true.
Because this was the first on Xbox One.
The thing I liked about certain like aspects of that game was like when you're shooting an arrow and stuff like that, you could do that. Like you could look down and stuff like that. Where like in number 2, or number 3, sorry, like you're playing as Connor, it was good, but it was clunky as fuck when it comes to like certain fighting aspects. Like if you look back at that trailer for number 3, that trailer is amazing.
Oh, it's a brilliant trailer, yeah.
But yeah, the game didn't live up to it.
Yeah.
And it's the same with all the other games. You look at like Liberation, Rogue, they were all good. The gameplays were shite. They were terrible.
Yeah.
They were so bad.
Major issues that I always found that the games had, especially in terms of what they were like presenting as one of their main selling points, which was the parkour aspect. It's the fact that like if you're running around and then suddenly like you come to a wall, you'll glitch and you'll start like climbing and falling down, climbing and falling down, climbing and falling down, just because you've misturned at the wall. Like that was a recurring aspect that just from 2 onwards, like they never got rid of it. They just made it less noticeable. Oh, like number 3.
Which one was it you went to Constantinople?
That was
Is that
Revelation.
Brotherhood or Revelations? Yeah.
Revelations.
The reason, like, going from 2, do you know when he learns that kind of he's running up the walls?
The
But
hook.
then in the hook you get in Revelation.
Yeah.
I was like, that's a cool little mechanic to bring from that to that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're cool little things. But then like you go to 3 and then it's like,
they forgot about that.
what happened to the rest? What happened? Where's all the stuff gone?
Yeah.
Like to go back to what you were saying, like in regards to like hate him, is the fact that like he was so charismatic and he's a prick, and then you have a son who's devoid of any fucking personality
No
whatsoever,
character, no
Like,
personality whatsoever. Yeah.
polar
He really
opposite for the wrong reasons.
Mm.
Like
To
no
say
one,
that he grew up as a Native American, you would expect a little bit more, like,
a bit more free flowing, like
Yeah.
fucking personality.
yeah, no, I'm a static dickhead.
Yeah.
Even in the
He's
trailer,
all
though,
right.
when you look back on the trailer and watch it now, you see him just kind of shove by people. You're like, wow, even in this trailer, they made him out as a prick.
Yeah. I know you're wrong. Like, there's nothing wrong with that kind of personality, but you have to counter it as well. You have to give him some redeeming factors, but there's nothing there for the player to latch onto.
No.
And like I said, that's an issue Ubisoft had generally with like making protagonists, because they thought like, oh, they don't have to be always be good guys. You know, they're the hero of their own story. It's like, no, but they have to be like interesting, full stop. Like, make them controversial or villainous in some way, fair enough. But make them good to play as. Like,
Yeah.
you know, that's where they got it wrong. And again, because they just had this knee-jerk reaction and killed the Desmond story like point blank, essentially, was just proven that like no matter what plans they had, everything was going to get sacrificed to what they thought was popular. And it just kind of showed that they didn't have any philosophy, they didn't have any kind of like direction in what they wanted to do. Like, if that was the case, like if that was the case, again, I'll use Metal Gear Solid as a reference. Like, if they went with that, if Konami had the same mindset as Ubisoft, you'd be getting Metal Gear Solid 2 all over again, constantly. You're getting the same game, but just in different settings. But instead, what you got was you got a like Bond-esque like game in a set in the jungle in 1960s. Then the next game you have is basically like taking off the Afghanistan war and about how war is an economy, and that's a completely different game. Then you have what you have is Peace Walker, a game on the fucking PSP, where it's a completely even different format, and like all these different unique adventures.
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed could have been that, but it fucked it up.
Like,
And it fucked it up because it followed its own rules.
what was the second one Raiden was in?
To which, sorry,
What was the other Metal Gear Solid Raiden that Raiden was in? Sorry,
Revengeance.
Revengeance. That one, yeah, that was really. I enjoyed that so much.
That's a great point. You would not have got games like that.
I enjoyed that game so much. I was like, this is such a good game. Even the one, there was one where you have to kind of like build your like facility kind of thing and all.
You talking about
Fucking give me a sec. I'll find it.
You're not talking about Survive, are you?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Oh, Jesus Christ, no.
Like it's the concept that they do something
They
different.
make
It's
different
not
games. Exactly, yeah.
no. Oh yeah, let's do this. The same aspect. It's like we're gonna change it up a bit and see what works and what doesn't.
See what works and what
And then
doesn't,
they
yeah, exactly.
like Phantom Pain was a great game as well.
Mm.
Like I like the fact that they do that. Like, and then I love the fact that when you go from like Snakey or seeing Ocelot as a kid and all, like being a little smart ass, like, oh yeah, look at me being a fucking badass, and you're just like, I hate you so much, but I respect you as a character.
And the time paradox as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like the fact that like you go into the likes of like that concept of like a character, a villain so much, and it's the same as in like number 3, you end up liking the villain more than you liking Connor.
Yeah.
It's like, what the
That's
fuck
exactly it.
happened?
It's the difference of writing a character. Like, villains are easier to write than for them heroes.
How did
But that's where you have to give the
with
heroes
Assassin's
something
Creed?
to
I
work
don't
with.
know.
Mm.
Like it's a game about traveling back in time.
Mm.
Why don't we have time paradoxes? Like
Should do. Yeah.
It's like they could have actually made that a big aspect of it. It's like if you change X, X, and X, this is gonna change drastically.
Oh yeah.
But like I said, they ditched the whole point after 3. It
Yeah.
was a case like for a certain period, like it was a case of like, oh, we're in the French Revolution now, have fun. Oh, we're in the industrial area, have fun. And then now they've like,
And it's like, let's go back.
Yeah. They've remembered what the point of the game was now.
It's like, shit, actually, hang on, we gotta go way back here. We gotta go back to Egypt first, and then go into the likes of. You're just like, okay, makes sense.
Like, yeah.
I like the fact that there's talks of 2 Assassin's Creed games, like obviously the new Black Flag game is coming out, which I'm fucking looking forward to, which should be really good. But then there's the concept of them going to like of Indonesia and stuff like that. That there's still like rumors about like them going to different places in the world. I'm like, yes, do it. Like you had China and it was shit.
Oh, China was way too
You could have done so much more with that.
Yeah,
it would have been
terrible.
amazing.
You had Russia, it was fucking terrible.
Yeah, like there's so many like things you could have done so better, so much better, like with China. Like you're just like, this game is god awful. Like I hate it.
I think a good one could be made in regards to feudal Japan.
Oh, definitely,
that's the next one. I think that's the one that would reignite it, because you can pick your clan, and there's other people that are be backed by assassins or
fucking
Templars.
Dressing as a fucking samurai. Just come here,
you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like an assassin Kabuto would look great.
That would look sick as fuck.
Yeah. So yeah.
Carl,
what would be a game that you hate?
That's a tough one. There's a lot of them out there that I fucking absolutely hate with a passion. But if I had to pick one in particular, I'll probably get fucking kicked in the face by a lot of people for this stuff. It's Call of Duty. I need a new Call of Duties.
Somebody had to fucking say it. Somebody
I fucking hate them. I hate them. I played them. I played Warzone. I've played them, and I still hate them to this day.
Yeah.
After Black Ops 2, them games just went downhill. They suck.
I completely understand Carl here, because like I know like you're kind of like a mix of both, where like some like Call of Duty games are brilliant. I hate them all. Like I hate every.
It's not even that. It's the stories were so good in likes of Modern Warfare 1 and Modern Warfare 2. They were so good. They were like these were amazing. And now it's just like, oh, we're gonna jump on a battle royale. Here's your battle royale game. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. Warzone, it's okay for a battle royale game. It's good. But at the same time, you're just like, nah. But then it's like you bring out the last 2 games have been like, oh, we're gonna do
Black Ops 3,
which was fucking awful.
With the Black Ops 4.
They were anything after 2 was just god awful. Like they
Black Ops 3 didn't even have a campaign. Like
it's the fact that it went into like, oh, we're gonna go World War II. We've done that. We're gonna do it again.
I hated that. The fact that they would keep going back rather than actually moving forward. Like,
and even then, when they went forward and they brought in like Advanced Warfare, whatever it was called, like the one where you had like robotic.
That was too much.
It was like, what is this jump like? Like we do not have that now in modern times. Like we might have something very close to it, but we definitely don't have it where we're fucking swinging from buildings to get in front of someone with a gun. Like
it was one extreme to the other. That's what it was.
Yeah. And it's the fact that like this is a game that made its money on its multiplayer being so good, and its stories. Now I can finish them stupid like them campaigns in like 6 hours on the hardest difficulty. It's like that's not a game I want to play. Like, give me a game that gives me a challenge, for fuck's sake. Like Battlefield. Battlefield is a fucking great game, because when buildings explode, debris hits you and it causes you to daze or get injured. Like, and it's a hard game. Like, it's not going like walk this way, walk that way, walk this way. It's like, I'm like, no, I can't stand Call of Duties anymore. They're just fucking garbage. I'm sorry to anyone that's out there that likes Call of Duty. It was a good game, but it's not anymore.
I hate them all, so I'm with you on this.
Fucking like, I have no problem playing them.
Yeah,
I have no problem playing them. Like I played them with Niall. I played them with some of my mates. Like Zombies was such a great thing to bring into a game. Zombies is great, but give me back old school Call of Duty. Give me back the difficulty and give me back a good multiplayer game.
I still remember like playing like Modern Warfare, and when you'd start like a local like deathmatch, like just like
the knife
tomahawk across the fucking map and hoping you catch a friend. And then
I've done it. I pulled that shot off a few times.
And just
then like
them off
it's just
royally.
The fact of like you have like maps like Rust and stuff, and you're like you run in with a fucking gives a shot at revolver and you can ping someone. Like and you're like, what a shot! I actually got it. Nowadays it's like this shot at revolver, bang, dead. It's like what the fuck, like
like it was fun. It then like especially those ones like keep in mind that like the story like for Modern Warfare 1, 2, and to a degree 3 were good because it was a trilogy of these characters.
Yeah.
Now,
Ghost.
it's Price and Soap. Like it's just like
Yeah.
it,
Price, Soap, Ghost, all them characters were
Roach,
just
yeah.
so good.
but like you got invested in the characters so much so like Price had to be brought back, like for
That's just
more
to try
recent-
and try and like redeem a game.
yeah,
That's
just
all that was.
just to cash in on him because he was a
Mm.
recognizable character and people liked him. But
Wow, that sounds
know
like
what?
a lot of games that are out there.
like the
Yeah.
story for that, it's literally like there's loads of twists and turns, and it still stings to this day. Like when you think of it, it's like,
Mm.
oh, you bastard, I hate you. Like, that's how you do good storytelling at the time.
Like that cutscene of when it's like is it Soap or Roach one, like when you get shot,
Yeah.
you're in the and then like you're just like what no, hang on, no. You're just like, oh no.
Yeah.
Now I'm kind of sad. Now again, it's just like, oh, character that fuck him.
And-
It's like he wasn't that good anyway.
Like, how satisfying was it that if I could like do the knife throw at the end?
Oh, that slow mo where you're like he's getting Price getting the shit knocked out, and you're just like,
Now I hate the fact that they reused that same like way of doing things for the final boss.
oh yeah, I know.
I hated that. But
But like the good thing about them games, what I liked was, when you done the like little side missions, where it was like you have to defend yourself against fucking wave after wave. Like, oh, here's a juggernaut coming towards you.
yeah,
The only way to take him now is unload a million clips into him, or take a sniper and ping him.
but
Like, I love that.
that's where it was fun. But like,
Nowadays,
Obviously-
it's like, oh no, I can't deal with this game. It's just no, go away.
but more often than not, it was really like it's really bad. It's frustratingly bad.
Yeah.
For
The
how
worst thing about
lazy-
nowadays is obviously you have cheaters and stuff like that who can't literally play a game without cheating. Like that just says something about you as a player.
Hmm.
Give up on your game in life, please. Like either get good at the game or just don't ruin it for people.
Mm. But like
And I'm
that's
sorry if anybody gets offended by that. Fuck right off.
so like
My opinion.
now my one now this. So I don't know if you would know this, John, but like
Mhm.
the game that I'm picking at the moment is one that I had played on the PlayStation, and I didn't realize until years later that it was actually a sequel.
Okay.
And it was a sequel to an actually very popular game.
Mhm.
But I didn't know this, but it frustrated me so bad. Now this was released back in. Sorry, I'm just looking at the year.
Sure.
This was released back in 1995,
Okay.
and this was the sequel to Flashback. It is also called
Flashback.
Fade to Black.
Fade to Black. Yes.
I
Infamous.
hate this game
Yes.
with a passion because there was fuck all explanation,
Yeah.
and even with knowing that it's a sequel, it's like
Mm.
you gave no indication of it.
Yeah.
It was meant to be a sequel, or no backstory for what's going on, and you just expected here's a gun, here's this, go.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck? And it's
I
not
can
even.
feel-
No, I do remember the game.
Yeah,
Yes.
fucking hated
What
it.
Terrible
Absolutely.
change. Yeah.
How did this game get 4.4 out of 5 and like 4.2 out of
Because they were cashing in on the fact that it was a sequel to a actual good game.
Yeah, like Delphine I know Delphine very well as a game company. Like they were one of those ones where like they did a lot of stuff like cinematic games first. And their back catalog is superb for what it is. I remember playing that game Another World, and like if you look at the game Another World and you see what year it's from, you go, that can't
91?
be right.
Fucking hell.
1991. Yeah, that game is as old as I am, and it's absolutely fucking superb. Then they followed up then with the sequel, which I think is like Barely Human or something like that, and it's like it's the same game but like played from the alien's perspective and stuff like that. But then they followed them with Flashback, which is genuinely one of the best games of that year. And it has no right to be. It's like so perfect. The rotoscopic graphics, the whole lot. Brilliant. But Fade to Black is one of those ones where like when the transition to 2D to 3D is full of pitfalls. And Delphine fell into that pitfall head fucking first. And it's a
They
shame.
made Darkstone.
What's that?
They made Darkstone as well. I didn't know that.
They made Shaq Fu, so that should tell you how far they fell.
Darkstone was actually a pretty decent game.
Like I'm looking at the Wikipedia for it, and the fact that it was released on Microsoft DOS with like full garage shaded 3D graphics, and then PlayStation with fully textured 3D, and then a version was released on Dreamcast.
Do you know why it was so bad?
2018.
Because of who the publishers were.
Yeah.
Fucking EA.
Yeah. But, like, goddamn, was this frustratingly bad? Like,
This is a game this game reminds me of another game that I hate, which is fucking Operation Flashpoint. Fucking god awful. The worst ever game I've ever played when it comes to a military game. But like this game, like Fade Black, what? Like, no.
Like, yeah, it was pretty bad. But
it's just one of those games you're just like,
again,
no.
like, just I couldn't. I really could not deal with it, and was just like, nope, I'm done with this. Well,
it's one of those famous cases where like now like Fade to Black like essentially like did the same game but in 3D in terms of like Another World. You're just jump like basically deep end first, and same with Flashback where you're just jumped in and get good basically. And in Another World it works perfectly because you're a human on an alien like area, so you are like essentially meant to just like try and adapt as quick as you can. The problem is that in 2D it's grand because there's only so many things you need to do to get adapt to. But in 3D and clunky tank like controls and the graphics and all this other stuff, it doesn't translate. So either you get it or you don't. And people who do get it, fine, no problem. They'll understand Fade to Black, but they'll play Flashback instead, and they'll play Another World instead. Fade to Black is the one that people just go, yeah, that just didn't work, which is the same for a lot of those games back at that time. They just didn't make the transition.
Okay. But like that's been the games that we hate. Like, but again, like obviously everyone has their own like tastes in different games, and some people may not agree with it. Like, but like what would be a game that you, let's say it's your guilty pleasure, or you think it's underrated, that people should kind of give it a look?
99 Nights.
What was that?
99 Nights. It's a game that came out on the 360. It is so good. I love that game so much. I had so much fun.
Yes, I know which one you're talking about now.
Yeah, it's there right beside Niall.
Bear with me 1 minute. I'm looking.
Like, it's one of them games. Like, it came out on the 360, and I fucking fell in love with it from the start of the game. Like, it came out in like 2006.
It is indeed.
Yeah, there it is. There, still in this box. I loved it so much. There were so many different characters you could play in this game, and it was like big battles and stuff like that. But it was like you running around fighting and all, and it was almost like a mix of like, how do I put it, like World of Warcraft style, like being out in the open and stuff like that. But it was so like it was just done so well. And like the stories were so good, like in it. It's such a
like
great
Dynasty
game.
Warriors is what I'm kind of getting from the vibe.
It's kind of like Dynasty Warriors. It's got that
same kind of vibe.
Yeah. So like this is a game that came out like
2006.
And like say that it's like they never made. They were supposed to make a set two more. They were supposed to make up to number 3, but they never actually did make them.
Yeah,
and it's quite sad. I'm like, it's such a good. Now it's only a single player game, but like, no, you've seen me play this game.
Yeah.
And it's just so enjoyable. Like for a game that got what, like never got a remake. It never got any. Like it got such a fucking, like just shoved off. It's one of the games that people like just shoved off to the corner. But yeah, it was just such a good game.
It was definitely
thoroughly enjoyed this game.
It was definitely one of those games that, like, for those that played it, obscenely enjoyed it. But
it was so good.
it wasn't one that was widely like received though from everyone.
It was literally just a hack slash game.
Yeah.
That's literally it. But it was just so enjoyable because like each character you played as had different weapons. One could have a spear, one could have a sword. Like it was just so good. And you play as the good and the bad people in this. Like you could play as the orcs and stuff like that, and you could play as like these fucking high and mighty humans in it. Like it was just so good. Like anyone that would go back, like if you went back and looked at the gameplay, you would actually just be like, this is quite an interesting game. I kind of want to give it a go. Like if I could play that game now on PC or on like an Xbox One or anything, you know, like with new graphics and stuff, in my opinion, it would be a really high selling game.
What about you, John? What would be a game that?
I'm going back to my point and click routes here because there's a lot of games in that genre that like are under the radar, but this one, ironically enough, is probably the best game you're going to play for free, and it was made for free by the developers themselves because they just wanted people to play this game. I'm going back to Revolution Software for this one. I'm going back to their back catalog. I think if you make an account of Good Old Games, one of the free games they give you is this game here. It's called Beneath the Steel Sky. So this was put out on the PC initially, but it was also put out on the Amiga. And essentially it was kind of ones now, Amiga, if you know the Amiga, you have like, you get the console and then you have then the fucking catalog of floppy disks you have to put in to play the game. This game did make the transition to CD-ROM, and like this should date how old this game is. It was published by Virgin when they were publishing games at the time, right? So if I was to tell you, basically, this game was put out in 1994, by the way, right?
Yeah.
For DOS and Amiga. So, and then the CD-ROM version brought out voice acting and stuff like that. If I was to tell you that this game was essentially a collaboration between the director Charles Cecil, who went on to do Broken Sword and the likes, and then Dave Gibbons, who you might know as the illustrator for the Watchmen comic books.
Damn.
And the intro cutscene is all his work. Is literally a comic strip of him showing you what the intro is, and he's one of the designers of this game. So the whole idea of Beneath the Steel Sky is essentially, it takes a lot of inspiration from Mad Max, right? So it's basically set in like what would be Australia, but it's not referred to that in the game because basically civilization's broken down so much. And essentially cities have become these kind of massive corporations, right? So it's very, not necessarily upper, like capitalist in that sort of sense, but it's just like basically each city has this fortress and it's building upwards. Hence why it's called Steel Sky, because essentially they're building upwards instead of like out, basically. And between each of the cities, you have this area called the Gap, which is essentially the outback for all intents and purposes. So you play as a character who's from the kind of outback area and has to come into the city because he's been kidnapped, essentially, by the kind of powers that be in the city. So the reason why I think it's so underrated is because, again, it's a really great game in the genre, and the fact that you can play it for free is obscene, in my opinion, because this game is packed with memorable characters. Again, much like Broken Sword, they have a great penchant for creating funny, memorable one-off characters you don't see again. So the way this game works, for example, is I'll try and simplify it, but the whole way the city works is that the higher up you go, the more working class you are. But the closer to the ground you are, the more high society you are. So throughout the game, you're seeing how the working classes are, then the middle class, and then the elites. And then you get to the bottom of the city, and that's where the bulk of the game kind of ends up in. It's a very quick playthrough, like 5 or 6 hours, which was quite a lot for the time. But what really makes it hilarious is it's really funny. It's got a great sense of humor, but it's also got this kind of ridiculous, I don't know, commentary on how like automation makes us all stupid in a sense. And that's kind of like a bit of a carryover from the Watchmen stuff as well, and from Charles Cecil himself. So in a sense where like everyone is just shit at what they do because basically the entire city is controlled by an AI. It's very like Carolyn Ellison in the sense where like the AI controls everything and we're just humans. We're just like pressing buttons and hope for the best. So it takes inspiration from that and inspiration from a few other sources like that. And essentially you have a an AI system that's controlling everything, and that's kind of making people complacent, right? To the point where like you'll have like a technician who's working everything out, but doesn't realize that the fuse is gone. You know, kind of way. So he's literally just like it's an idiocracy, as the term is. But all the characters are really, really funny. So like you have these two characters like called Sam and Norval, who are security guards, and they both sound like, you know, they're all both from Red Dwarf, and they talk with Birmingham accents. It's literally like it's a collection of like accents in a game that's set in Australia. They're all like British and Irish and Scottish accents, and some of them are just fucking hilarious because they're just really endearing characters. Like someone you meet up in the industrial area is a guy called Gilbert Lamb, who in my initial playthrough I gravitated towards because he's such a dickhead. He's such a complete and utter twat, you know, because he's wearing this big beaver coat. So he's kind of like one of those guys who looks like he probably has like delusions of grandeur and is a real suck up and a sycophant and all this sort of stuff. And he is in charge of the factory that makes pipes. And he literally will give you a tour of the pipe factory and all this sort of stuff. And he is like, his gimmick is that he's wearing this kind of like big fucking fur coat made of the last 10 beavers in the world. Right? So that's an example of his character. Yeah. Another one, like in that same pipe factory, is a guy called Hobbs, right? And legit, like you have to haggle for his one item that he loves to death, his clipboard. He has a clipboard and he loves it and adores it and so forth. And it's a case like you fuck up the machinery around him. And he goes like, has the machinery stopped? Yes, it has. Well, my clipboard still works, so I'll just pretend I didn't notice. And he just moves on with his game. It's so fucking funny. Yeah, but I'm not doing it justice in a sense, because when you play and you enjoy so many of the other characters in there, but then it also has like the story then kind of kicks in at some point where like you realize, oh no, this is like a fascist AI regime, and it does relate to the main character. The main character has a past, and it's relating to him. And the more you reveal about it, you go, oh shit, this is actually a lot closer to home than you think. And it makes for some very, very good twists. Simple twists, but very good ones. Again, great humor in the game, just like little wacky bits of dialogue. You have a robot sidekick called Joey, who's just a fucking smart arse throughout the entire thing. Like you program this robot yourself to be a sarcastic dickhead, and it works so well, you know. Especially because like you had to find the little robot you had was shot up at the start of the game, so you have to bring the motherboard with you, and you find robots to put in and plug them in basically.
Wish I could have done that with Claptrap and Borderlands. Shot him.
Yeah, but again, Joey predates Claptrap by a good 10-15 years.
Oh yeah,
it's the same idea. It's the same idea though. It's a robot sidekick with a fucking like sassy attitude type of deal. But no, it's a fantastic game. Like one highlight personally was that it has nothing to do with the plot whatsoever, but you can go into a courtroom basically and attend court, right? In fact, you become the defense attorney for one of the characters you know, and the entire court is set up like a game show. So the judge goes like, you know, like, okay, so here's your starter for 10. What did you do to commit the crime? And it's just like, and he treats it like he's a game show host. And it's like, well, now, Mr. Hobbs, it is now time to give my sentence. And you win today's star prize, life imprisonment. And the whole thing is done as an entertainment. And like when you leave, then you go, court is now closed for today. Please check link space for more attractions like this. And it's all kind of like very like it's a bit of social commentary, but it's also just really kind of like, I don't know, whimsy at the same time. Yeah. It's a lot of like slagging off like a political system and slagging off this and so forth, but it's done it with a little kind of friendly jab. Where like, oh, it really can't be as bad as this, or can it? Kind of deal. But the great thing of what I love about this is I love that it's underrated, but only like last 2 years ago, Revolution put out a sequel to this game called Beyond the Steel Sky.
I literally just seen that there on their thing.
And it's 20 years since the first game came out, like if not more, 25 years, and they put out a sequel to the game, and it's in the same tone. It's a modern take on it, but the actual atmosphere and the setting they've done is so fucking good. They kept the same kind of like vibes that they wanted from the original game, from the Amiga, onto now like at wider scale, and they've done it better. Like the actual themes are so much better. They show you how like they've improved as game designers from that point.
I like the fact it's free. It's still free game as well. It's completely free game. And it's on Steam as well.
Yeah, like before Good Old Games and Steam, they had it on the website free to download. You can just download it. If you have MS-DOS working, just boot up and play. They had it like free to play on the game on the website, which is
Sounds
incredible.
like Sherwood. But Sherwood predates World of Warcraft, and that was such a good game. And it was another free game. Like obviously, World of Warcraft now is still free, but you can get like you can only go to a certain level. Like, but like I still like the fact that it's a free game. That the actual like developers just went, I just want you to play it, just enjoy it.
Exactly. That's exactly what they
here. Spend €80 on this game.
Yeah. Like legit, like you'll be playing Bethesda Sky for maybe tops 5 to 6 hours, depending on how you are with puzzles. But it's a fun 5 to 6 hours. Like you're enjoying it. You want to explore. You want to talk to the characters, and it's generally worth the time because, like I said, it's a game for free. You have no like like financial penalty here. If you don't like it, you don't like it. But if you do, you're thinking, "Oh, this is fucking great. I'm delighted I played this now." You know,
it's definitely something that, like, as you said, like it's not going to cost anyone that, and so like worst case scenario, you're going to enjoy it or you're going to hate it.
A bit of guilt-free fun, yeah.
What would yours be now?
Mine is now. It's a shame that I can't actually like play it because I don't have it anymore. But this game was from the PlayStation. It came out in 1998.
That's okay. It's not what the game I thought you were going to say. I thought there was a game in particular I was going to say. I was going to like punch you in the face for saying it.
No. But like, no, this came out in 1998, and it was a sequel to a PC game, and it managed to come onto the PlayStation. So this is Skull Monkeys, and yeah, so look that up. It's
both of us had to jump there.
Yeah.
Go, what the fuck is this game?
All one word. Now this was done by EA at the time. As a platform video game, but it was a sequel to Neverhood.
Hang on. Straight away, that cover is stolen from Medieval.
Yeah, it's definitely Medieval ripoff.
Yeah,
but it's a Medieval and Oddworld ripoff.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, but like this was done now stop motion animation.
Yeah,
like and claymation. Like it was incredibly creative in terms of like how not only was the world made, but the different techniques used for like certain characters. Yeah.
Man, like if I went back to play this game now, I'd still want to burn it. Just looking at it, it's like, oh god, no.
Now it was one of those games that like it's because the humor that was in it appealed to kids. Like obviously it got me and a few of my friends. Like we just really enjoyed the humor in it. Because it was simple, effective.
It looks like a bit of a mix of Rayman in it.
Yeah.
Like because like Rayman was long out.
Rayman would have been well before this.
Well before this, yeah.
Yeah, well before.
Like this, so, but again, like
it takes so many aspects of different games. Like look at pictures of it. It's literally got like Mortal Kombat, like the way it moves with the side. It's got Rayman. It's got mixes of every kind of.
It's a hodgepodge of 2D platformers, like
literally. It's literally a PS1 like mashmatch like different games.
Yeah.
Like
the handy thing is that like the cutscenes are still available to watch on YouTube, and even if you weren't into like watching playing the game, watch the cutscenes because it's good stop motion animation, especially for the time.
No fucking way. Ripple Effect was a developer in this game.
Mm-hmm.
They made fucking Medal of Honor and Command & Conquer.
Yeah.
How could they make such a shit game to make some of the best games in the world?
Yeah, it's just
that's nuts.
Like, I mean, like this was one of the few games. It was one of the few games that actually stuck to the 2D platform, but it had certain 3D graphics in it. But it was still a 2D platformer. But I found so much enjoyment in it. I mean, like it's a shame to me that it's like it didn't get enough love to warrant a sequel on a console. But as far as I'm aware, it still maintained I think like a spin-off or another sequel that was on PC, but it didn't get enough to give
was
it
about to
any.
say actually, funny you should mention that because I just realized here that the guy that was behind Skull Monkeys is a guy called Doug Tenapel, who
Yeah.
well, like Earthworm Jim basically was
Yeah.
kind of was his work, and he worked on this as well. But there is actually a spiritual successor to Skull Monkeys that was released about 7 years ago rather, called it says here Armicrog, and it's the same character, the same main character from the Neverhood. And it's the same idea, same kind of clay animation. So I don't know if it's the same kind of character, but it's the same idea anyway. That wasn't particularly well reviewed, but like it's the same idea. So it's the same.
Like this game
premise.
got like Skull Monkey got really good reviews, which is surprising.
Yeah.
To say it looks so fucking awful. Looking at it now.
But it's but at the same time, like I think with the PS1 you kind of give it a bit of a free pass, but it's also
A little
that
bit, yeah.
type of in the same way like Ed, Ed and Eddie is not a fucking like it's not a looker, but that's like its own unique selling point is that it's so grimy, So
like Skull Monkeys was like it even though it was a platformer, like kids could access it like very easily, but it also provided a challenge even for adults to play.
Yeah,
so that's what made like it.
It has that same kind of aspect as Medieval. Like that was a really enjoyable game, but it was fucking difficult to play back in the day. Like you go back and play that now, like you literally be like, "Fuck, this is still a difficult enough game."
Yeah, but yeah, like not bad for 1998. Like Jesus,
I'm actually shocked at the studio Ripple Effect doing their game. They made some of my favorite games ever. Like they made Command and Conquer, they made Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle-earth 1, 2, and Rise of the Witch King, which are like literally my games that I love playing with a passion. Like they made like fucking I can't get over that. How many of that?
Everyone starts somewhere, man. That's how it goes.
Like they made Generals. They made Command and Conquer Generals.
Yeah.
Which are doing EA subsidiary, so it kind of makes sense. Was it?
So like
fuck EA. Still hate EA.
Like
they got rid of my favorite game in the world. Like I hate them.
Like we've talked about like games we like, games we didn't like, and games that we think might deserve a little bit more love. But to kind of wrap it off, like we'll finish with a little quick fire.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Simple, straightforward. A game you think deserves either a remake or a reboot.
Who wants to go first on that one?
Who wants to go first on that one?
See, I have one, but at the same time, they're kind of remaking it, but at the same time, they're not remaking. It's like just
in limbo.
Like it's literally it's just basically it's like fans remaking this game, and it's Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle-earth 2. Well, Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle-earth in general, it's being redone. But it's been years getting redone because it's remodeling and everything. It's bringing them all up into modern day. Like it's a game that deserves to be remade and deserves to be fucking pushed. Like that game was immaculate. To this day, I still play that game. Like I love that game with a fucking passion. Like the fact that it has like mods on it now on the PC for like of Age of the Ring and the Edain mods, they made that game so much better. Like the Age of the Ring just brings a whole new aspect to it. But when you look at pictures for Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle-earth Reforged, which is the official like thing that started it all, you look at their models, and I was only showing Niall some of them the other day. They are immaculate. The detail that these guys are putting into this is stunning. To say EA killed this game, fuck you EA, for like you had it in your hand. You had probably like, and I'm not the only person. I know so many people that love this game, and it's still like hugely viewed on like Twitch, still hugely viewed on YouTube and stuff. Like there's people who play this game religiously on YouTube and put out videos like Root Devil and stuff like that. There's tournaments held for this game still to this day. Like EA, you had that aspect of it and you gave it up. Like it just pisses me off. Like the game that I like literally put hours and hours and hours into, just getting like swept under the rug by EA because they will refuse to fucking sell the license.
Yep.
And even now they won't even release it on digital to make money off it. that's how bad EA got. Like they're that stingy they won't release onto a digital download. They can't even buy on digital or on disc like anymore.
Mm.
Like I still have the disc version.
Well, though, wouldn't it? Like
It'd be licensed and stuff because they won't. EA will not. Like they're just like, no, we don't want it. Like it's not going to make us money. It's like, are you serious? This game has literally like massive following. This game would make you a lot of money. There you go. There, look. That's there. The PC version number 1 is there somewhere as well. Like I have these on digital download. Don't ask me how. You just YouTube how to download. But like I streamed this game. I streamed it today, literally, and like I love it. It's just such a good game.
Like, what about you, John?
Funny enough, I am actually going to ask. I'm going back to Ubisoft for this one. When they were good and they actually cared about it, and they actually had passion and creativity, and I think they should bring Rayman back. Now, I think the first Rayman game is peerless. Don't touch it. There's nothing you can do to improve that game.
That game is just immaculate.
It's a perfect game.
It is. The game is timeless. It has not aged a day. There's nothing wrong with that game. And to be fair, with Rayman Origins and Rayman Legends, you're more or less getting the same kind of experience with more people. Boom. I'm actually talking about Rayman 2, which is The Great Escape, or Rayman 3, Hoodlum Havoc. Two of them are absolutely fantastic games in their class. As platformers go, they're absolutely top notch. When you have like the likes of Spyro and Crash getting these warts and all remakes, people actively wanting to play the same game again, but with the HD graphics. Rayman 2 deserves the same love, 100%. It is in that class in the same way.
Yeah, it definitely does. It definitely does.
It's in the same class as Sonic, as Crash, and as Spyro. The only problem is that it's Ubisoft, and Ubisoft has more or less treated Rayman like a mascot, as it has done basically a piece of dog shit, and it's wiped it away from its entire history. Like, to say the least, that they have done Rayman dirty. They have replaced Rayman as a mascot with like the rabbits and whatever else they have. It's like that's like Sega replacing Sonic with fucking Rob Schneider. Like, there's no fucking comparison. What are you doing, you fucking mentalists?
Rob Schneider.
But that's what it is. And the only reason, it's pure pettiness, because the original guy, Jean-Michel Ancel, that Rayman is his creation. And they don't like him anymore. They don't want him in their company. So they're going to basically bury Rayman with him, which is ridiculous in a sense, because you have the rights to it. Fuck him, or whatever he's done, whatever culture he developed. Use the game and make something good out of it. You've done it before. You've done it twice. Do it again. You know, and with Rayman 2 in particular, I think I look at that game for the PS1. I'm thinking like that game will be absolutely fantastic with a HD remake. Bit of different voice acting, and it is a perfectly solid game to play because you can add extra stuff onto it. Hoodlum Havoc already had a bit of a HD touch up and is on the PS3. Looks great. Looks absolutely beautiful. You don't even have to touch that because the gameplay is spotless. But Rayman 2 is the one that's going to get away in terms of all the Wars and all remakes, because Oddworld has had one, Medieval has had one. That's the one that's getting away, and it's only because Ubisoft are a bunch of cunts. That's the only reason it's doing it. But if you play that game now for the PS1, it still holds up in terms of like a game that's like done 3D platforming for the time very well. But it could do with a HD remake because it is very polygony. But at least like it's given the love and the attention it deserves, because again, in this kind of weird like age where like, you know, companies are being bought left, right, and center, somebody could literally, somebody could pick up these IPs and make something good out of it. In the same way, like Spyro and Crash could be now being used for something because Activision's been more or less been selling off these assets like they're fucking hot fucking cookies.
It's the same aspect of like how they brought like CTR, like Crash Team Racing in, and they brought the trilogy of Crash and Spyro. How well they done.
They were that's exactly it. People want to play these games now, but just with a HD lockup. They don't want the game to change. They just want it to look better now. They want it modernized.
With Crash, like there's only one Crash game that they're like literally, you know, pushing to the side exactly like Rayman, which is fucking Crash Bash. I loved Crash Bash. That was a fun game.
We don't know if a fucking studio has it, like then it's
Crash Bash was one of them games where it was like they brought the aspects of that game into other games where you're like bounce around on like changing tiles and colors and stuff, but like you're doing that with like a tiny Crash. Like in head, like it's so good. Like that concept like was so much fun back in the day.
Hmm.
Like and riding around on little polar bears and all, like it's great, like knocking each other off ice and all. It was just a bit of fun.
Yeah,
Like
that's
that's
exactly
all
it.
that game was. Like and Rayman, like playing Rayman like 1, 2, like all the way up. It's just fun. It's just a
They're
fun
fun
game
games,
to play.
Yeah. And even like there, it's also one of the series that's actually like made like the Game Boy Advance ports work as well. Where
Yeah.
some of those games don't work, but they actively, instead of just porting the game, they made a new one and just like did it slightly differently, so it feels like a slightly different game. So you've done enough to say like, well, at least there's enough care and attention put into these games now at that point. And it is such it's a crying shame that he's not allowed to basically play with the rest of the kids in that sense, because he absolutely deserves it as a mascot and as a character. Like he is part of the Parthenon of characters. It's like the same way like Sega not allowing Sonic to having new games, you know, or not letting like, or Nintendo finally going, okay, Mario, you've had your fun now, it's time to get rid of you. It like Ubisoft was Rayman was Ubisoft mascot for generations, for decades, and only because corporate interest and selfishness and petty politics, that's why it's been locked away. It has nothing to do with the game quality, because Rayman only had one sticker, and that was when they brought the fucking rabbits in. And we can blame the rabbits on them because they're literally brain damage. They are brain damage in a fucking character. And Rayman was done dirty by it. Simple as. So bring the Rayman, bring the Rayman character back, reboot it, remake it, whatever you want to do. Because bear in mind, from the Crash trilogy, by the way, we got a new Crash game.
Yep.
And we're more than likely going to get the same thing with Spyro. So there is.
We are apparently getting a new Spyro game.
Oh, we absolutely are. Hands down.
I'm like, that concept of like a new Spyro game. It's like, but please don't ruin it. Like,
well, the Crash Force is
bring a new
great,
character in or whatever, but keep the old characters. Like the new old characters were fucking great.
Exactly, yeah. So they just make a game in the same guise as the original trilogy, because that's what people want. People want to, not only is it a nostalgia kick, but new like kids basically are playing these games for the first time, and it's reintroducing these characters to a whole new generation. Like that is money personified. But no, what's more important is we get the Division out, we get the Crew 3 out because we want to drive around the US again, and let's get 4 more Assassin's Creeds out. Let's get Far Cry 7 out. Let's all this. Like, that's what they are drilled in, because Rayman is not a sandbox.
I can see like with the Assassin's Creed games, yes, but like of the Crew and like all these other games, they're awful. Just stop.
They're awful games.
Just stop.
I played the Crew. It's terrible. No, it's a terrible game.
Just bring out, like, stick to what you're good at. Like your Rayman, your Assassin's Creed, the stuff you're good at. Keep that kind of style, but tweak them to make them better. Each one.
Yeah. Give them a modern twist.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah. Like, look at the new Crash game. The new Crash game is so good.
So, like,
what would not be?
So surprisingly, like, mine's kind of like a toss up between two of them. So my runner up would actually be Pokemon Stadium.
Yes,
great game.
Like that's my runner up.
Fucking love that game.
Or the actual one that I think would be good, especially in terms of its local multiplayer, GoldenEye.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I'll give you that one. I would give you that one.
How good was GoldenEye back in the day?
I would give you that one. GoldenEye was an amazing game.
Yeah. If you remade that,
to say that that's the one, like for someone to have a copy of that and like to sell it would be worth fucking mad money.
I have a GoldenEye.
Sell it. It's worth mad money.
Nope. I refuse.
That's like me with the Metal Gear Solid 1. I still have that in like a box, like the disc, like, and all. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not selling it. Why? It's one of them games. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I do not want to sell it. It's just I want to keep that.
But that's exactly it. Like for anyone that has played it, they understand straight away when you say it. GoldenEye, like for the N64.
Such a good game.
That was for local multiplayer, which was a big deal at the time. And then adding on like the little cheats, like big head mode and paintball mode and fucking like all these other things, or getting the golden gun. It's like
the only problem I'd have with it nowadays would be most companies would want to change it too much.
Oh yeah, of course.
They'd want to fucking ruin it.
But even if it was a case of like, okay, look,
just remake it.
With the way modern like either like consoles, like for some reason they're just opposed to having it all be on one screen.
Hmm.
So why not do it like the old days where you'd have like a
The split
system
screen,
that
the
would
four.
connect like
Yeah.
the 4 fucking consoles? Like you could do tournaments just on that alone.
And plus the Switch is there as well now. So Switch
Yeah,
completely
yeah.
circumvents that.
Like I
Yeah.
think that would work very well on a Switch.
Hmm.
And I mean the fact that you can actually not just have a handheld, you can use it on the TV.
Yeah.
Like I think that would be a fantastic thing, like remake to have out there.
In fairness, I could have swore you were gonna say Jet Set Radio for one of your games tonight,
Oh,
and
no,
I
no.
was gonna punch you square in the nose for that game. I hate that game.
No,
It
like,
sucks.
believe me, I have other games that way up there for what I want a remake for. So
Although I wouldn't mind seeing a few more Bond games remade. Like The World's Not Enough and stuff would be good.
Tomorrow Never Dies was a really good game.
Tomorrow Never Dies as well.
I love that as a third
I'd love
person
to see them as remaking a kind of more HD vibe. They would be real fun.
like for The World Is Not Enough, like the poker game.
Oh, that took so long to get my head
Frustrating.
around.
But goddamn, was it worth it though?
Yeah,
Because you had to learn how to play it.
but like there is games out there like in that like GoldenEye kind of era that you were like, yes, I would like to see these again. Just
To be
with a
honest,
little
like,
bit of
Pierce Brosnan
HD.
era of fucking James Bond.
Yeah,
Those games would be good.
I
and
think
hearing
like,
that iconic voice again.
yeah.
Like
if you can't even get GoldenEye because of the licensing and stuff like that, a perfectly good like plan B would be Perfect Dark. Because it's essentially
Yeah.
the same game
Yeah.
without the Bond aspect to it.
Yeah.
So, and again, like bear in mind now the developer of that is Rare, which is an Xbox subsidiary.
Yeah.
So you could easily bring Perfect Dark now to the Xbox, which they have kind of tried before, but let's not talk about that. But they can do it again now. They can do it properly. You know what I mean? And that's the way to do it. Just do it justice, worse than all remake, because that's what people want now.
Yeah.
Like again, that's I try to keep it short and sweet.
Hmm.
Like obviously that's been now we've all had like just 4 games and it's we've lived up to the title.
Certainly have, yeah.
Literally. With a few honorable mentions in there.
Yes.
Yes, there was like, and again, like with future episodes, we're gonna be like delving a bit more into other games that we really like, and but apart from that, like obviously, like we do want to hear your thoughts on it. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree? Because like that's the whole point of this
If
show.
you hate us, we
Please
don't
not.
care.
Well-
Don't hate us. It's just opinions, okay?
Can't hurt you.
Again, it's just it's a bit of fun. Everyone likes doing it. Why don't you share your opinion with us? But like if you did like us, please go
Smash
follow,
that like
like,
button. Smash that subscribe button.
subscribe. Go follow like Carl of FoxyBros Gaming. Follow like John at Monday Madness LP on Twitch.
What's right, lads?
From Twitch, yeah.
Me,
Ooh.
Foxman2390 on Twitch. But also like go check out the FoxyBros Gaming YouTube channel and the Nerds Are Us channel on YouTube. Like for more content like video game, wrestling, podcasts, like a lot more like gaming.
Bits of everything.
Hodgepodge.
Yeah, Lodge Podge. Like just full of it. But again, I've been Foxy, that's been Carl, that's been John, and this has been Just 4 Games. See you later.
Bye.